Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury.
Electrifying.
Yes, guys, and welcome back to the Cannon podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all good. We are here to record episode 4 of the Data Pod. And joining me is the great, the wonderful, the marvellous George. How are you, George?
You're very good. Thanks. You're too kind. I'm very well. I'd say it's been pretty adventurous since we last spoke. I think back end of the year, pretty much exiting 2 domestic cups, a few sort of mixed results in the Premier League, and then kind of business as usual in Champions League. But I'm excited to talk about today. Yeah, how are things with you?
No, all good, mate. All good. Obviously, it's been quite turbulent, obviously, since last we spoke and recorded episode 3. But there's a lot to get into. And in this podcast, we wanted to really focus a lot on Arsenal's attacking performance and looking at different metrics to kind of analyse what Arsenal are doing in comparison to other teams in the Premier League. And that's the real focus of this pod, because I think naturally, we are more drawn to Arsenal's attacking performance because of how good we are defensively. So just to get our teeth stuck into different numbers behind what we are doing in the final third and in the box is something that was really motivating to do this podcast. So, why don't you share it with us, what you're going to present?
And as Ryan said as well, actually, do I need to share my screen first? Yeah. The actual theme for this as well was also inspired by a comment that was left on the previous video recorded. And again, it was really focusing initially, and this is what we'll do on the sort of the first 3 portion of it, is really drill into Arsenal's efficiency once they get the ball in the attacking third. But on the longer pod, we'll also talk kind of more broadly around the kind of the attacking deep dive. But it's really good, and I think we'll welcome more comments like this for things to look at, because it's really inspiring then for us to go further and kind of go more into that. The comment in particular, as I say, was looking at Arsenal's attacking third before a goal and how efficient they would be, and obviously providing a view of that over Arteta's tenure as manager. So what we looked at to measure this is attacking third efficiency. So there's a lot of information here, so I'll break it down first, but I've used the bubble chart to be able to provide a comparison across all teams. On this axis, it's showing how many shots on average per a game. So you can kind of see which teams are the high volume, take high volumes of shots versus lower volumes. And then on the vertical axis, it's then showing, well, how many actions are they taking in the attacking third for every shot that's made. Now, action, I'll just provide a kind of quick definition of that. So I've used FBref for this data, and they use a term called touches. And the way that they're measuring it is the number of times that a player has touched the ball. And so what's quite important for this is, what that's noted here is receiving a pass, then say dribbling and then passing to another player counts as one action or one touch. And so this isn't necessarily just the amount of individual touches that a player is making. This can also, should be inferred by how many players, I guess, are involved when it comes to actions made in the attacking third. With the size, finally, of the bubble representing just the volume of actions or touches they're taking in the attacking third. So what can we get from this? Well, firstly, in terms of shots per 90, Arsenal are sort of somewhere in the middle, and we're actually 9th in the league in terms of the amount of shots that we're taking in every game. Converse to that, we're actually 3rd when it comes to the volume of actions. So that's behind Man City, that are incredibly high volume when it comes to amount of actions they're taking the attacking third. And then I believe Liverpool are 2nd. So we're 3rd in terms of that. But based on the combination of 2 of being relatively moderate for shots taken and high actions, this efficiency metric that the comment was really interested in actually shows us to be 19th when it comes to the volume of actions that we're taking for every shot that we're registering. And again, that's that, as I say, that puts us behind City in terms of that particular metric. Brian,
I mean, this for me is kind of like I think it was a week ago in which I tweeted about it, and the feeling that I have watching every single Arsenal game back twice is, and even from last season as well, is Arsenal play with their food too much in the attacking third, and this kind of represents it really well. Being what I think it's 19th, for actions per shot. And also, I think the volume of shots, we spoke about that before in terms of Arsenal not taking enough shots in these sorts of scenarios and overplaying. And I think that is very representative of what we tend to do in the attacking third. And obviously, we'll get into further metrics that you can access via the full episode by becoming a Patreon or YouTube member. But there's other details to look into this as well in terms of the just things that Arsenal can do better in this aspect. And I think right now from this, looking at it, is I believe Arsenal need to play more of instinct. I think that in these sorts of scenarios, we need to be more impulsive with our actions and not overplay, and I think that is something that also kind of links with the other feeling that I had in terms of Arsenal in transition the moment they win the ball back. And there is an excellent account on X, Data EPL Analytics, who does really good work on a number of different metrics. And one of them was looking at turnovers and the number of shots after turning over the ball. And Arsenal rank, I think, second in the league in terms of turnovers, which represents the press and how effective it is. But what follows afterwards is Arsenal ranking, I think, 17th or 18th in the league in terms of converting those situations to shots. And it goes back to that theme of overplaying, and it's represented here as well. So I think, there's things we can do better internally. But for me, the driver here is externally in terms of bringing greater quality. And I think in the next chart that you're going to show, in terms of actions in the box, it shows a very similar story as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, so similar to what I mentioned around, instead of actions taken in the attacking third, this is now looking in actions in the attacking penalty box. So again, we're third for that. On average, we're taking 34 actions per match within the penalty box. So 34 individual players are doing something with it. But again, we're ranking 9th for shots taken. And then that actually means that because we're the most, we're amongst the most high touch and quite middle for shots, that actually we're 20th. And so on average, we're taking 2.5 player involvements for every shot that we're taking when we're in the penalty box. Yeah. And again, this you can see with the bubble chart as well that, there's quite a distance, I suppose, between what we would consider kind of the average or where the rest of the teams are.
It's like the perfect example for this, and it's looking at it in a good sense here is, do you remember the goal Declan Rice scored against Dinamo Zagreb, right? The ball comes into the box in a very good area for Havertz, but he'll be willing to play the wall pass first before Declan Rice pulls the trigger and we score. But that is very representative of what we do in these sorts of situations in the box. We have a lot of selfless players, but not enough selfish players at times, and players who can take responsibility immediately and pull the trigger. And I think when I look at the market and some of the players that have been linked to Arsenal, I think immediately you could see us improve if we were to acquire Bryan Mbeumo, for example, someone like a Semenyo as well, who are they're very incisive and they make quick decisions in box scenarios. And that's something that we don't do well enough. And it's represented really well here. And also, like I've alluded to already, the number of shots per 90, we can do better in that regard. We can do better than that with the players that we have at our disposal right now. I think the actions in the penalty box per shot, we are the team that overplays with their food the most, as shown from this graphic. And I think that we can improve on that internally. But ultimately, I think the driver for that is bringing greater quality and bringing players who are going to be more selfish in those sorts of scenarios. And how many times have we said it? I don't know about you, but where we're in a really good, promising scenario in the attacking third, in the final third, or the box, and I just want a player to have a shot. Like, just have a shot, have a shot on goal. It can create a ricochet, rebounds, etc. Things can happen, But sometimes I just feel, we overplay too much, and it's definitely something we can improve on, and certainly will allow us to generate more threat and greater expected goals per 90 as well. And these are the things that Arsenal need to improve on. And it's very well shown here. So I don't know if you had any other thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the recent weeks and the month since we last spoke, I have observed that the sort of the general trend for expected goals across the games is dropping. And I think there is this general sentiment of just, taking more shots or being braver. I think there's possibly there's a lot to unpack with that as well. I mean, I imagine, Arsenal tend to face more low block teams. And so being the path to be able to get clear shots is maybe more limited. And so taking an additional action is probably seen as a better move than maybe trying to take a shot where it's a high chance that it will be blocked. But yeah, I think the where you landed is kind of where I felt with it as well. And I think there's more context to provide as well, which we'll go through on the follow-up episode of when Arsenal actually shoot. How efficient are they? In scoring? And it's not necessarily just taking more shots for shots' sake. It's also understanding, obviously, the quality of those shots that we're taking. But I think it definitely adds to the Arsenal need more of that kind of goal presence killer type, someone who is going to be braver, I suppose, like the guys you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we need more variety in terms of our attackers, and actually, the point that you made about Arsenal overplay, and they do tend to play with their food too much, certainly in my eyes, and the data shows that as well. But when we do actually take a shot, there's some very interesting numbers behind that, and the quality of these shots that we do generate, which is a really big positive. And the other thing I think in terms of taking more shots, and it's kind of like when we talk about Arsenal's changed / altered approach from post 22-23, in which that was the first season which Arsenal began as title competitors and taking the league by storm, and being something that was a pleasant surprise for Arsenal fans, but certainly a surprise other fans didn't want to see, particularly rivals. But the way that Arsenal played in that season was very vertical and constantly looking to kind of play centrally and with the gas pedal on, whereas post 22-23, Arsenal moved more towards a controlled approach and looking to play more through the sides and not looking to access the centre immediately, because there's a higher likelihood of turnovers and transitions from occurring. But then I feel like Arsenal can move a little bit more towards that more central approach. Not too much, because I think there's a really fine balance there that we can do to achieve greater good there. And it's the same with this as well. It's not a case of I want Arsenal to shoot every single time they're in the attacking third. I want them to shoot every single time they're in the box. It's just being a little bit more braver to give us more threat and greater quality in these scenarios. And the final point that I wanted to make as well, in terms of being more brave in these scenarios, is the fact that you look at the players that we have in our backline, Gabriel, Saliba and Declan Rice, when he is playing as number 6, or even when Thomas Partey, who's obviously having a good season. I think there is more license to be braver when you've got those players who are fantastic in dealing with transitions. Our rest defense structure is fantastic. And I do want to see us be certainly a little bit more brave here. So, yeah, but that was interesting. We're going to talk more about all the other aspects of Arsenal's play in the attacking third, but also on build-up, on chance creation. And yeah, if you guys do want to access that content, you can get it via the link below to become a Patreon or YouTube member. You can also access episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the Data Pod as well by becoming a member, in which me and George looked at various different things. The last episode was about Bukayo Saka and his inevitability. And actually, when I look at how Arsenal kind of fared in Saka's absence in the league, we've done better than what I thought, actually, in terms of our actual results. So all that content is there for you guys to see if you want to become a member. So yeah, we're going to now look to record the rest of this pod and look at all the other aspects of Arsenal's play style and also more focus on the chance creation side of things. So any last words from you, George?
No, that's perfect. I'm looking forward to jumping into this in more detail to give kind of that more complete picture. And again, just encourage kind of feedback like that to kind of inspire future episodes or different deep dives as well. So it's great that the community is really engaging in it.
And that's something we want to always stress. We've looked at one of the comments from our previous video from the YouTube, and we saw that as very motivating and something that we could dive deeper into. And that's what we want this podcast to be about. We want you guys to give your thoughts and opinions on things you'd like us to dive into, and then we can present them in future podcasts. So that's the aim. So it's all about you guys to ensure that you get the best content available. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.